Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Blockchain Ireland's monthly meeting for December. My name is Paul Hearns. I'm a journalist and commentator for more than 20 years in Ireland. And we have a very good agenda for you this morning. First of all, I'm going to welcome Professor Joyce O'Connor just to give us an introduction this morning and for some opening remarks, and then I'll take you through this morning's agenda. Joyce.
My name is Joyce O'Connor, a founder and co-chair of BlockW and a member of the steering committee of Blockchain Ireland Cluster, together with Bernard Gaughan, Pierce Ryan, Dave Feenan and Larry Keogh. As you know, this is the new phase in the development of Blockchain Ireland Cluster, and we are asking you, the blockchain community, to be part of the next phase of the development of this cluster, to help provide the leadership for the cluster and create an ambience of excitement about its future growth. Larry Keogh will expand on this a little bit later in our meeting. This morning, we welcome two speakers, Kevin Lally, an Irishman living and working in Switzerland, and Shane McCarthy from the Island of Ireland. Paul Hearns, our moderator, will set out our agenda now and introduce you to our speakers. Paul, it's over to you.
Thank you, Joyce. So as Joyce said, we have a good panel of speakers this morning. First of all, we have Kevin Lally, a board member of Crypto Valley. As an Irish native who moved to Switzerland, Kevin has become a renowned business advisor and thought leader in the blockchain industry. At heart, he is an entrepreneur with his most recent technology company founded in 2020. He has successfully supported international client projects as the CEO of the Swiss consultancy SOA Flow for more than 10 years across industries from investment, banking, wealth management, insurance, energy, government, and blockchain. He's developed close relationships with the Swiss federal and cantonal governments, Swiss financial regulator FINMA, and numerous top Swiss global universities and global blockchain ecosystems. So we'll be speaking to Kevin first, but then we're going to have the Blockchain Ireland member and steering group committee member, Larry Keogh, who will present the 2021 strategy and plan. So after that, then we're going to have Shane McCarthy, who's CEO and founder of Ireland Craft Beverages, Killoan Distillery and Downstream.io. Shane has developed long experience internationally in the tech industry and also developed a vision to bring about a natural symbiosis between the drinks industry and contemporary tech, including blockchain innovations and global supply chain management. Shane is working to achieve that vision with what is described as the world's first blockchain beer, Downstream.io. So then we'll hand back to Professor O'Connor just for some closing remarks. So as part of our agenda this morning, after each of the presentations, we will have the option for a little Q&A. So if you check the bottom of your screen, you should see the Q&A function. So that is open to everyone to ask questions. So please do put your questions in there as you think of them. And as we get to the Q&A session for each of the speakers, we will take those in. So please do make use of that. So I'll call on our first speaker then, Kevin Lally of Crypto Valley Association, who's going to tell us about the association and the blockchain ecosystem in Switzerland and how they've worked locally to establish themselves and to develop international connections.
Thanks very much, and thank you for the introduction, and very good morning to everyone on the call this morning. It's a great honor for me to join everyone and to be invited by Blockchain Ireland to present to you this morning to update you on some developments from Switzerland, and more particular the Crypto Valley Association and the crypto and the Swiss blockchain ecosystem. I'm going to share my screen now and going to step into a presentation, and I hope you enjoy it. It'll be quite brief, about 15 minutes. Good morning to everyone, and I hope you enjoy the following presentation. I'll try and keep it brief, and I look forward to the questions afterwards. So we cover topics such as the Swiss blockchain ecosystem and the role the Crypto Valley specifically plays, who we are, then stepping swiftly into what we do, and then our recent achievements, and we cover some membership as well during the presentation. The first section, Swiss blockchain ecosystem. So it's been under extreme growth over the last number of years, in particular the last 3 to 5, with the introduction of the Ethereum Foundation a number of years back. Vitalik Buterin, who was successfully invited and attracted to set up his foundation and to invite his team to start the smart contract developments in Switzerland. And from that, the actual that was the seed that was sown that spawned to actually grow the entire ecosystem a number of years back. From the map, you can see that there's an actual concentration around the town city of Zug, but it's actually the greater Zurich area, which is in the northern, more German-speaking part of Switzerland. That entails or encompasses the city of Zurich, the cantons of Zurich, Schwyz, Zug, and Aarau and Uri. And this is where we have the concentration. We have more than 800 plus startup service providers and crypto organizations, as well as governments and academic bodies involved in the building and support of the ecosystem. So questions we often get is why Switzerland, and what role does the Crypto Valley Association play in fostering the ecosystem? We'll have to answer those in the following slides. It's largely irrespective of placing blockchain to the side as a topic for the moment. As a country, Switzerland is built on 3 pillars of government. It's a decentralized form of government with direct democracy. It's a federal authority with a balance of 26 decentralized cantons. It's also a consensus democracy, which is in contrast to what we might be used to in other countries through majoritarian democracy. And the cherry on the top, or what gives the citizens of Switzerland such direct control and say into what happens and how their country is governed, is that the citizens can set up an initiative which is to collect 1,000 signatures within 18 months and be able to bring a new rule, a new topic to be addressed at the federal level. In contrast, they have a referendum. If they want to challenge something, they have the ability to be able to collect 50,000 signatures within 100 days and be able to challenge legislation that has been proposed to be brought into law. And that's true power in the hands of the people. And it's a very, very good model to be adopted. And the decentralized form lends very well to the actual adoption of the decentralized technology. And so this is kind of the bedrock of what makes Switzerland at a very fundamental level so successful. And their legacy is very much evident of that. Goes without saying that corporate tax and tax in general plays a huge role in attracting not only skilled individuals, private individuals, but also companies to Switzerland. And I just show the slide. There's a lot of detail in it, but you can see that the tax levels are extremely low in some cantons, and in particular Zug, where the seed was sown, the corporate tax is extremely low there, just below 12%. So it's very, very similar to Ireland at 12.5. Also, from a competitiveness perspective, Switzerland is ranked either 2 or 3, and it has been that position for the last number of years. And Singapore in first place, but also globally at a competitiveness level, it's very impressive, and it continues to be so. Then, from an ecosystem factors that's made it successful, or that provided the support, is the Swiss Federal Council in 2017 constructed a sandbox model in which for 60 days startups can hold 1 million without having the requirement to have a banking license. This provides startups with the ability and time to focus on innovation, as opposed to being bogged down in regulatory red tape for that period of time. And that was also a very, very welcome and very good framework sandbox that was supportive of innovation and startups in Switzerland. And that is continued in today with the attracting startups from all over the world. As I mentioned before, it's also government endorsed, not only at federal level, but you have the 26 cantons throughout Switzerland, and each canton competes for its own fair share and attracting the relevant startups to their area. We also have an international hub epicenter that we try to reach out to. We're growing and expanding that continuously. And of course, investment to the startups and investment into the ecosystem in the country is fundamental for any success in any country. And we try to attract and adopt investment into the sector. So who in particular is the Crypto Valley Association? So So it has a focus of fostering blockchain ecosystem growth, of course, startups and investment, and the dovetailing of those, and making sure that they find each other to make sure that the innovation gets invested in, and it can grow and grow into medium-sized and corporate-sized entities over time. And of course, we have an international focus over the last while, signing number of MOUs and forming very strong relationships with not only with other countries, governments, local governments, but also academic bodies, and that continues to this day. I'll bring some more details on that later. From a mission statement, the Crypto Valley Association, it likes to develop the world's best ecosystem for blockchain and cryptographic technologies and businesses. And we're often asked, so it can be very difficult to describe what the Crypto Valley Association does or the role it provides, but I tried to distill that down over the time that I've spent there over the last 3 years. And the best term, the description I can provide is a proactive liaison. Liaison meaning it's like the glue, gluing and binding all of the participants of the ecosystem, making sure that everyone can find each other, communication flows, and then proactive in that when an issue arises or a challenge arises in the ecosystem, we don't wait around for the issue to block things. We proactively look at what needs to be developed. We work with the different participants, as I said, federal level government, cantonal level governments, FINMA, and also the startups, and we try to address proactively the challenges in the space. This is just a short example of some of our corporate members of the CVA. I think you might know some of the names on the list there. KPMG, Accenture, Swissquote is a very, very big entity in Switzerland. MME is a law firm, and Ledger being a hardware wallet provider. It's just a few of our corporate members. So what in particular does Crypto Valley Association do? So this is the bedrock. I could almost present the entire presentation simply from this slide, because it is the foundation of the association, in that our focus is placed in the 9 working groups that you see in front of you. The startups onboarding that I already kind of mentioned, and this investors and how they need to find each other in order for the startups to gain funding and investors to be able to place their wares and take position in different startups and different industries, as well as different parts of Switzerland. Then we move on to tax and accounting. It's a bit self-explanatory in relation to, for instance, one of the questions that we were presented with over the last number of years is, if you're a private individual or a startup and you have some of your assets in crypto or digital assets, how do you make a tax declaration correctly when you're holding those assets? And because that's a new asset class, it posed a number of problems for private individuals to make and companies to make their tax declaration. So in that, we proactively took up that challenge and question, went out to the relevant bodies to help answer it, and came back with an answer to the members of the association, and it was very much appreciated. That's just one example of what we did. International affairs helps to support and reach out to and grow international relationships. In the bottom row, then we have education technology. The education, of course, is largely, we're building that out to provide online education to our members of the association, and linking up with SaveAbank to allow us to do that. Technology is connected to the University of Lucerne and the Crypto Valley conference that I'll come to in a moment. And then closing off with probably the 3 biggest content generators in the association over the last 3 years. And that is the regulatory working group, and that is very much connected to the development around developments out of FINMA that I'll also mention a little bit later. There's been some recent developments there. And FINMA also released an ICO classification over the last number of years, and we helped to bring that to the members and inform people of what is happening. And since then, people are probably more aware of the STO, security offering, and also the frameworks and how that affects companies and building their models. Cybersecurity and enterprise blockchain, of which I'm a board representative, are also extremely popular and very important for the establishment and support of the ecosystem. Cybersecurity, I'll come to more details about that later, in how adopting best practices and security measures is important, and enterprise blockchain speaks for itself. around the adoption of the technology at enterprise level and the use cases that it can support. I mentioned previously the conference, and this is just a quick snapshot of where it took place or when it's taking place this or last year. Of course, with COVID, we had to actually move that to the following year. It's one of the only IEEE accredited conferences in the world, and that is because it has a heavy academic leaning, and we gather academic papers and allow those to be published, and we distill them down into the best 50 to 70 and bring those to the conference on the day. So it's several hundred and distilled down into a smaller number. And of course, then we have a business stream also, as well as a regulatory stream in the conference that, and with the balance then, it becomes very attractive and has been growing very strongly over the last few years. So our achievements from the association. The Startups Working Group has also been relaunched or expanded over the last weeks in that we support now a Swiss crypto guide that has been provided by the chair of the working group. And in that crypto guide, you can see some of the topics there in the center of the screen that provides a guidance mechanism to help startups answer some of the basic questions that they would need answered at the beginning of starting up their companies around ICOs, STOs, tokens, supervisory authority, mining, banking, and stablecoins, to name a few. Then on the cybersecurity side of things, some of the topics that are addressed there is key management and key ceremony. I have a slide to talk about that a little bit after. Smart contracts and auditability of smart contracts, and also secure development and enterprise blockchains. And then also around security around crypto custody is fundamental. And in every working group, we also do research and try to provide publications as well as hold events to disseminate that information and publications to the members in a form of information and entertainment. As I mentioned before, we had a very important publication earlier on in the year, is the Trusted Key Ceremony Guidelines, and it was a very, very successful event around that as well. And some more information can be found on that on our website, and I ask you to please have a good browse of it. It's very insightful. A deep dive into regulatory then, some of the areas that we cover is, we mentioned that FINMA reached out to us to provide a platform to inform people about the ICO Code of Conduct, is now kind of morphed into the STO, security token offering. We also have the FATF, VASP, Financial Asset Task Force is FATF, and VASP is Virtual Asset Service Provider. And that is a framework on which anyone that is operating as an intermediary holding assets on behalf of their client must be compliant with those measures and frameworks. And also there's openvasp.org is a website that and an association that we work closely with to support those developments. As I mentioned, we have a close relationship with the Swiss Federal Council, of which I have a very important update that came out last week. And we have another federal level body, SIF is the Secretary of International Finance in Bern, that we also form publications and give input in over the last number of years. So I'll actually read this verbatim because it's not only is it very interesting, but very important to the development. So it came out from the Swiss Federal Council last week, and I'll just read it actually word for word because it's very interesting. Bern, on the 11th of December, during its meeting on the 11th of December 2020, the Swiss Federal Council brought into force with effect from the 1st of February 2021 the parts of the DLT bill law that enable ledger-based securities to be introduced. In addition, from that date, the Ombudsman affiliation requirements will apply only to those financial service providers that serve private clients. In September 2020, Parliament adopted the Federal Act on the adaptation of federal law and developments in distributed ledger technology. Its blanket act will adapt various federal laws such that Switzerland can continue to develop as a leading, innovative and sustainable location in the blockchain and DLT area. As I mentioned, this is also available on the Swiss government's website, but it shows that at a legislative level, the developments that are happening at Switzerland that are very, very important, so that the Swiss, not only the Swiss law, but the Swiss regulation also supports and upholds and matures with the ecosystem, and then the startups and companies can then adopt those laws and regulations are abide to them, and to make sure that everything is compliant and the ecosystem can grow in a structured way. Tax and accounting, I'm exceeded on my time, so I'll fast forward. These are the topics that we discussed: guidance on tax declarations, participation in public review of Swiss VAT guidance, and the co-publication of accounting and guidelines as well. And this is also a piece of an example of some of the publications and reports that we bring out during the year. It's a ICO-STO report, and it's in conjunction with the PwC, of which most people probably know. They have an office also in Dublin. And this is an example of some of the enterprise blockchain events that we had during the year, and covering solutions, also bringing together the ecosystem of Singapore here, and then a number of participants from Switzerland. And this is also another example of connecting Switzerland. You can see the two central pictures. We connected to South Korea in this regard, at the University of in South Korea, and we had Professor Park join us there, and Josh Choi from ICON. And ICON is like the South Korean Ethereum. So with that, and exhausting the time, I'll bring the presentation to a close. I hope you very much enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the meeting later. And thank you very much for your attention. Best wishes.
Thank you, Kevin. That's given us a very good idea of what the association is about and what you've been able to do. So just a reminder that we do have, between now and the end of the session around 9:45, the opportunity for some questions and answers for each of our presenters. So please do use that Q&A function. But just Kevin, if I might, I'll kick things off. You mentioned that there were sort of particular strengths in terms of the blockchain industry and scene in Switzerland, and certainly the legislative elements there are very encouraging as well. But what would you have seen as the sort of the particular strengths or distinguishing features of the scene there that allowed you to capitalize on that with the association?
It's very much the participants and the blend. It's like baking a cake. You need to have correct ingredients and then binding the ingredients to make the best end result. So everyone has an open door approach, or most participants have a very open door approach, a very collaborative approach. And when that is in place, so the federal level government, the cantonal level governments, you have FINMA, that's also a very open communication principle, along with the academic bodies, and then the corporates, enterprise bodies, as well as the startups and members. Of course, they're always participating and seeking help. And then there was, with all of those bodies working in a collaborative fashion and working in the same direction with the same mindset and goals, you have a very, very a good combination there to move things forward. And it's the individual elements, but then the cooperation between the individual elements that are moving in the one direction that is the magic formula that makes things how they are in Switzerland. And of course, when there's challenges, to then proactively address those challenges as they arise, and not say, throw the package over the wall for someone else to fix. Is taking a proactive, collaborative approach to addressing those challenges as and when they arise.
Very good. Well, we have our first question in there, where an attendee is asking, what would be the greatest success stories within the Crypto Valley Association, which was one of my own questions further down the list as well. So what would you regard as your greatest successes thus far, even as young as it is?
Well, of course, there's multiple success stories from our members, and I like to be fair in trying to mention everyone and try to mention all excellent projects. But there has been a few key projects, and I would have to say and start with the invitation and the attracting the Ethereum Foundation to fund in the Crypto Valley in Switzerland. This was the seed that was sown because with the smart contract implementations and how that applied to blockchain, that attracted a huge degree of developers, a huge amount of also innovation coming out of the universities, young students seeing maybe opportunities within the market that weren't provided, and how the automation or disintermediation of so many services. You know, if you lend that to financial services, you lend it to the insurance space, you lend it to industry, pharmaceutical. It doesn't matter where you apply it to. The disintermediation of a lot of services is forever growing, and out of that, then you have a number of very, very successful companies, and probably one of the biggest it would be Bitcoin Swiss, that also founded and is very much present in the core of the city of Zug. And it provides a huge degree of services to many companies as well as investors in the area.
There's just another question there in terms of you mentioned academic support being a key element of what you're doing. So the question is, who would be the biggest academic players in Crypto Valley? Would it be the likes of the University of Zurich or Lucerne? What kind of academic players have you got?
It's across the entire country. Switzerland is very similar to Ireland in that it's quite compact. It's a small country, and when you're small, you become also very agile, and their entire academic base is extremely strong across the whole country. So I'll name just a very few number of universities, and at ETH, number one is a extremely profound engineering university, and is one of the top global universities in the world. Across the road from that is the University of Zurich. Then if we move to another canton, you have St. Gallen, which is a very, very famous business school in Switzerland. Of course, University of Lucerne that is in the canton of Zug and Lucerne. It's very close to where the Crypto Valley Association started. So the relationship with the University of Lucerne is also very, very deep and strong. And we work with them to also provide the Crypto Valley Conference. So this is a very profound relationship. And then if we move to the Western chapter and the Southern chapter with the universities down there as well. So the Western chapter, EPFL and University of Geneva. These you have also Fribourg. These are very, very top level universities, and the quality is very much high across all.
Okay. Well, the next question then is probably an interesting one in terms of these kinds of associations anywhere, and it's asking if you receive state funding or how is the funding model achieved.
No, we don't. It's one of our challenges. We would welcome and hope that at some stage that might be changed, but we don't receive direct funding. The funding that we would receive would be in this form of sponsorship of events or the conference, but direct funding on a continuous basis, we don't. It's strictly funded from the memberships from the Crypto Valley Association members, private individuals and corporate members. And then one of the other key areas is providing quality level in events. And then the topic of the events usually can be sponsored by the participants of the events or companies that are interested in supporting those topics. And we try to, of course, with the phase that we've passed through, the COVID phase, we had to go fully digital for that phase. It's been a great challenge, but very much successful. And now we actually need to plan to have a mix of a blended approach, maybe digital as well as in person in the next year, and be able to gain financial support from those vehicles.
Okay, I'll just put one more question to you then. It said, could you expand on the sandbox fintech rule? You mentioned it as part of your presentation there.
Yeah, it's the details. I probably don't have the time to go into the great details, but it's simply the case that for a period of time, it's on the slide, if I remember, it's 6 months or period of time. I think it's 6 months that I mentioned, and the startup has the ability to receive investment from an investor to the maximum value of 100 million Swiss francs. 1 million Swiss francs, and they have the ability to hold that. And focus on the innovation as opposed to what would normally be the case without the sandbox. You would have to apply for a regulatory license to hold the assets in that way. So instead of having to focus on the regulatory license application and the red tape and the admin around that, which is very lengthy at times, they can focus on the innovation for a period of time. Then they have to decide whether, if they still want to move forward with their idea, with their innovation, they have to then, after the time expires, apply for the license in a normal fashion. But it means it gives them that breathing space to be able to focus on the innovation, focus on the engineering, focus on the creation, and that's the fundamental the purpose of the sandbox that was formed.
Very good, very good. Okay, well, there are one or two others that we're just not going to get to, unfortunately. But thank you, everybody, for that. And with almost everyone is thanks and praise for your presentation. So thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on now. But the Q&A option will be open there to everybody. So please do take advantage of that. But next, we're going to go to Blockchain Ireland co-founder and steering group member Laurie Keogh, who's going to take us through the 2021 strategy and plan. And there will be an option for questions as well there. So Laurie, I will ask you to share your screen and go ahead.
Super stuff. Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Kevin, for that great presentation. So this is where we're at, what we're going to cover. Really following on from our last conversation and on the survey results that we got, what we wanted to do was, I guess, lay out what we're trying to do and trying to do together in 2021. So as always, these first two goals have been there, I guess, mission, vision, values of Blockchain Ireland to establish Ireland as a global blockchain and crypto hub, to help create jobs around the technology and in the space. And then thirdly, to develop a vibrant ecosystem across Ireland. And I think having Kevin join us this morning has been really helpful, I guess, to see what good looks like in terms of what we're trying to achieve. I don't think we can do all of the fantastic things that the Crypto Valley Association has achieved in 1 year, so across 2021, but I think it gives us a great flavor as to what we should be striving to do. Firstly, and secondly, I think it's also a great opportunity for hopefully us to work more closely with Kevin and the Crypto Valley Association to, I guess, our mutual benefits or the mutual benefits of both associations. So I'd certainly welcome feedback and ideas as to how we do that. But yeah, watch the space on that front. So look, that's what we're trying to do. The mission and vision, these goals will constantly be there as we strive forward. So what we want to do then is, and I also touched on this in November for those folks who were able to join us last time. I think I hinted at a number of what these kind of core deliverables are. And the approach that we're taking for 2021 is to really adopt a startup mentality, a lean mentality, an agile mentality, in the sense that we are starting small and we're looking to deliver on those increments. We're looking to deliver on those specific things. So the first thing that we're going to do, hopefully we're on the path already to doing this, is we're going to hold high quality monthly meetings. So I think we had a great meeting last month with Barry Lowry, the government CIO for Ireland. We have Kevin and Shane this morning. And then we'll continue in that vein each month, giving you hopefully great speakers that you want to hear about, want to learn from, and also want to ask questions to, and also build your network. So that's really what we're trying to do. So the second thing is around working groups. So I'm going to touch on this more in a second. So we've had working groups, but really what we want to do is to, as we got great feedback from somebody, how do we best support those working groups and set them up for success? So I think that's a really good point, and that's what we need to do. So we're going to be hearing more about the working groups in January and what their plans are for 2021, because really they're at the heart of what we're doing. So if you're interested in joining a working group, we're going to touch on that in a second. The third area is Blockchain Ireland Week. So we didn't run it similar to what Kevin mentioned there for the Crypto Valley Association. We didn't run it for 2020, but we will be running it in 2021. It'll most likely be in May, and that seems to be a date that worked in 2019. And we're trying to have 75 events with a much bigger focus around Ireland. So there was a big concentration in Dublin, but we definitely want to get out and about. I think that was also feedback that was received in the survey that, can we see about hosting when we're able to do so in a physical sense? Can we have events that are taking place not just in Dublin? So that will happen on a monthly basis as well as within Blockchain Ireland. So we certainly heard the feedback there. And then the fourth point is also what we touched on in November, and based on feedback, was a national blockchain strategy. So this is something that we touched on with Barry Lowry last time, but also after the meeting. And this is something that we'd love to work with people on. And ultimately, it's not kind of I guess, writing a paper and then kind of throwing it into the department on a position paper, and on areas that, we can actually implement, whether that is digital identity through Project Emerald, which was touched on, or an array of other initiatives. But we're really keen that we're going to do that over the course of 2021, and we'd love your help to do it. And we're going to do it hand in hand with the government, as I said, rather than just kind of throwing it over the fence, because we want them not only to, I guess, receive it, but most importantly, to act upon it. So happy to answer any questions on those as well. So what our overall philosophy for 2021 is simple. It is keeping things simple and executing really, really well against these 4 things. So hopefully that makes sense, and there's no ambiguity. Strategy, plan, there you have it. Okay, so basically what we can see here is there's been a huge amount of activity, especially over the last couple of weeks, right? And I couldn't keep up to date with everything here. So we saw JP Morgan using blockchain to move billions in repo market trades, which is really significant. That was in connection with Goldman Sachs, and also BNY Mellon, BBVA in Switzerland, launching their first commercial solution in terms of custody. Old Mass investing 100 million in Bitcoin. Then we saw SIX joining forces with Signum around a digital platform. Standard Chartered Northern Trust also entering into the space. We saw ING also entering into the space, and then Singapore's DBS Bank. There's many items here I've left off. There's even an announcement today between Banca Generali in Italy. There was a great announcement also yesterday from John Hallahan and Killian Leonowitz from EY, that the partnership between EY and Microsoft and their blockchain endeavors around Xbox. So it's actually been a fantastic couple of weeks in terms of enterprise and enterprise adoption of the technology. And it's really kind of sets us in a very exciting place to move into 2021. So I just wanted to share some of those. All of the links are actually contained in this, are contained in the deck. So as we move on, we can see that these are the working groups as they stand. They're not totally finalized. So Blockchain Ireland Week, we're looking for someone who wants to put their hand up and who wants to own Blockchain Ireland Week, who wants to help us run it. So Skills and Innovation, we said, was Dave Feenan. So Dave's done a fantastic job. We have the Masters in Blockchain at DCU, as well as many other initiatives. Legal and Regulatory, Pierce Ryan, who has, I think, the longest and most established working group up and running. So there's a big group of people there, which is fantastic. Developer is Bernard, and always more developers, I guess, welcome, and we'll have more developer focused updates as well in 2021. And enterprise and startups, we're also looking for people to come and join us and join the steering group to help those get up and running. So if that's you, please do get in touch, and I'll come on to show how you do that in a second. So next steps, each working group lead. So what we're looking to do is for January, each working group lead to present respective deliverables at the monthly meeting. So really, it's what is your plan? And it doesn't have to be huge. And maybe you're only going to do one thing over 2021, and that's fine. But as long as it's one thing that's executed, we really want to move into that execution zone. So where there's no lead in place, we'll work with members to appoint a lead. And the steering group will provide as much support as possible. So don't worry, you're not on your own, and we'll help you set out realistic goals. Where possible, each working group's deliverables will align to one of the 4 key objectives that I touched on. But I appreciate, if you're working on something at a code level, that might not be possible, and that's fine too. What's important is what's of interest to the working group. If interested, please mail the respective working group lead. So if there is a working group lead already in place, please feel free to mail them. And you can see here, there are the email addresses for those folks. Also, feel free to get in touch with any of the steering group, including myself, if there's anything we can do to help, or if the lead isn't in place for the group that's there. And you want to either lead that group or participate, also please feel free to get in touch with us. We're delighted to help, and to be honest, we would love your help, and that's probably the most important thing. So that's really it in terms of what I wanted to cover, and delighted to answer any questions now or at the end. But as I touched on, I think in November, where we are limiting the scope to ensure we execute really, really well in 2021 in order to provide value back to everybody who's dialed in this morning, and also to increase the overall, I guess, net and shine a light on all the great blockchain activity that's taking place and in crypto in Ireland. And that is it from me.
Well, thank you, Laurie. That's a comprehensive strategy there. So it's good to see something as strong as that heading in. So there are one or two questions in here. I suppose coming in under the possibly under the startup working group heading, but there's just a question where it says, where is the best place to start to get a basic understanding of how blockchain works? So I think so much noise has been created around this that a lot of people are hearing how blockchain is being applied to different areas. And perhaps there are people who are expert in their own discipline, but have heard blockchain being mentioned as a key support for it. So if that's not their expertise level, where's a good place to start for a basic explainer?
Yeah, look, one of my perhaps favorite educators over the years has been YouTube, right? So I think, Brendan, if there are fantastic videos out there from all sorts of different, either, big companies like an IBM or like an EY or Deloitte or Accenture, who produce lots of great educational videos, and also lots of great educational material on what is blockchain, and also they get into detail as to what blockchain can do for specific industries and sectors. So I think I think that's probably a really good place to start.
There's another question then. It says, would there be scope for further working groups, or do you want to keep it as is? So I would imagine as things develop, priorities might change. So what are the structures there to handle the working group sections?
No, spot on, Paul. That's exactly it. In this space, working in blockchain and crypto is like dog years, as people say. So I think it moves very quickly. And Jens, my point here would be, and I think the rest of the steering group share this as well, is very much around what do the members want and what's helpful to you guys. So I think if it's one person who has an interest in one area, then it probably doesn't make sense for there to be a working group set up. But if there is a bunch of people that, think this is really important, and maybe they present at a monthly meeting to say, look, guys, if we think this area is really important, would anyone else like to join the working group? And if there is a groundswell of interest, well, then absolutely, let's set up a working group. Let's support that working group so that they create a meaningful output or deliverable for the rest of the community, and that's our job, is simply just to help with that. So thank you, Jens, for the question.
Again, yeah, the sort of central role of Blockchain Ireland in creating awareness of the work of other organizations as well. So say the likes of BlockW as well, and the work that they do. So again, just a central point for dissemination as well as your own activities. But there's one other comment then coming in there. I'm just finishing up a certificate in blockchain for business at GMIT and have lots of references to useful online content, more than willing to share. So again, that's a great gesture, and that's coming in from Kevin. So thank you very much for that. I'm sure that that could be incorporated in the broad reference that's provided by Blockchain Ireland. Could we have a brief pitch to probe interest in a future meeting? That's from Jens. I presume that means a physical meeting, because we do have for Blockchain Ireland a scheduled online meeting as Laurie outlined in strategy, for monthly. So do you have any idea, Laurie? I suppose it's some element of crystal ball gazing. Have you any idea when physical meetings might be realistic?
I guess, Paul, we are at the behest of the government and governmental advice first and foremost, and to the safety of all our members. So, do I see this happening in Q1? I probably don't. It was interesting to see Google were supposed to come back into the office in, I think it was either June, July. That's now pushed out to September. So I think we need to watch this space, but our plan as Blockchain Ireland, we will be holding certainly virtual meetings just like this one at January at least, and I would expect February and March as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Laurie. It was great to get the deep dive on the strategy. And again, just a reminder that versions of the slides will be made available for people for reference So I'll reintroduce Shane McCarthy of Irish Craft Beverages, Ireland Craft Beverages and Downstream.io, the world's first blockchain beer. And Shane is going to talk about use of blockchain technology in general in the food and beverage industry and how it works. So thank you very much for joining us. And so again, Shane is going to talk about the technology in general, how it's being applied in the industry, as well as his own experience as founder and MD in Ireland Craft Beverages. So Shane, over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Good morning, everyone, and thanks again for the invite. Great to see all the different people getting involved in blockchain Ireland. Hopefully this project will help inspire or answer some questions that people are wondering how to utilize a blockchain commercially or understand it a little bit more. So I'll try and keep it as short and sweet as possible, just with the time frame that we have. So as Paul said, just to connect the dots for everyone, myself, Shane McCarthy, Liam Brogan, and Donal McGlynn, we worked with all the small artisan suppliers across Ireland. These were the small craft distilleries, and breweries, set up new international trade supply chains across the world. So we created avenues for sales, and for a lot of these people that were new to starting up their own business in the whole craft beer trend, the whole Irish whiskey trend, and everything that you're seeing over probably the last 5 years starting to really take off. That itself evolved into co-founding officially Ireland's smallest distillery, built in the top of the Moor Mountains in County Down. So the whole ethos of Ireland Craft Beverages is to bring a true taste of Ireland, a true taste of Providence to the rest of the world. And just to give you a little bit of, I suppose, background on myself before I move on, before I moved into more business enterprise, I was heavily involved in the financial technology industry, working with a lot of developers in the financial service industry in New York, London, and in Ireland. And as you've probably seen from Kevin's presentation, there is a lot of, and even what Laurie's saying as well, there is a lot of fast-moving technology happening over the years. This project itself actually originated and started in 2017, and this year has probably seen a big in industry, I would say. So, as I said, Ireland Craft Beverages, its whole ethos was to bring a true taste of Ireland to the rest of the world, and it was to showcase, I suppose, what the rest of the world doesn't know about Ireland. We've got big commercial brands, to name a few, Guinness and Jameson, that the globe know about. But there's so much more that goes on in Ireland, so much more innovation, so much more forward thinking, and even individual inner genius that the world doesn't know about. So for us, we wanted to help give a voice to these people, and set up a platform to pivot these businesses to the rest of the world. So just to start off of why Downstream came about, there was large commercial players coming in and what you might call as pseudo craft beer, and not just in Ireland. It was happening in the United States and all across the world. Some people might call it fraud. Other people just seen it as pain points, as anti-competitive. These small producers, the big thing that they have is that they talk about their story, their craft, their passion, their purpose. That in itself is how they came to the market, created these brands. Consumers, this was a new category to consumers. So for us, we wanted to look at the industry as a whole and see what kind of technology consumer, as well as empowering the suppliers themselves. So for us, I wanted to go to the market, see what was out there. I was quite versed in the blockchain industry, following it from 2010. I myself personally read a lot of material following it. There's great books out there, audio books called The Business of Blockchain, YouTube, as Laurie says as well. All that material is evolving constantly, but I did find some of the reading materials really helpful, as well as seeing what was happening in the industry. And then for us, we decided to come to the market and collaborate with people that were using their own private blockchains, their own use of enterprise ledgers or DLT that Kevin was speaking about earlier. And again, I suppose all the advancements that are happening at the minute are you'll see that they're still evolving, and we have actually switched from what we initially used to what we use now. So here is some of, I suppose, the more archaic ways of what some people were using in the industry. Was a simple logo, which you see in the back of labels. And, you know, this to us wasn't really the right solution. There was so much more out in the marketplace in terms of technology that was much more robust. So for us, we partnered with Skillnet. They were one of the pioneers utilizing of blockchain technology. They were using their own private blockchain in industry to work with everything from tracing, you know, the digital makeup of the DNA of your meat to even the supply chain of beverage and mainly food. They started off with food, moved more into then even track and tracing airline parts and many different use cases that I'll not get into. So for us, we really wanted to take this technology and mix it with the provenance of beer. This is probably more prevalent now, seeing QR codes everywhere. When we built this in 2017, we were a little bit weary because phone cameras at that time weren't really picking up QR codes. iOS did implement it again in 2017, and to really engage as quick as possible the story of the consumer, to authenticate everything from the mineral makeup to the hops, the malts, etc., of what's inside the can of beer. So as I say, you give people the data and you empower the people. You can see here, I felt the more you listen to consumers, you said the word blockchain, earplugs go on, people get a bit confused, or you know, they think cryptocurrencies. So for us, we just more wanted to create this UX and let the data sit in the background. So you can see here some of the interface that we built on top of blockchain, and you can see that any facts that were underlined are all hashed out and verified and secured. And so that was a big part of when we built this. We really wanted to make the engagement process and the user interface as visual and engaging for the consumer, so it wasn't data heavy and it didn't almost scaremonger people to confuse them. So as I say, you know, they could verify anything they wanted to, you know, and everything was time stamped on the supply chain. And something that really rung true what Kevin was saying, when you're all moving in one direction, I mean, every stakeholder is moving in one direction in the supply chain. That's what really empowers this technology. And that's what gets results when everyone starts to move and see the direction that they're all trying to get towards. You can really utilize this technology and see the true value in what it can bring to market. So this is the user interface. And again, I'll quickly scan over this, but to break down something as simple as where is your beer packaged? You know, how is it fermented? You know, when was it sent out the door? Where did it go to? What location? You know, and are these facts true? You know, was your beer actually brewed in County Dublin or County Cork? You know, and all of this data was pulled straight from the brewery itself, and then it was put onto a secure blockchain for consumers then to verify it. So everything was desktop and mobile tablet optimized, so it allowed people to quickly use their phone camera that they have in their pocket. And again, more and more, I'm seeing this the last 2 years, people are getting used to verifying, are getting used to taking the product, wanting to know what's inside it. And as I mentioned, everything is individually numbered as well. So every can is unique or is digitally unique. And here you can see some of the other interactions that we tried to help engage the consumer. We embedded video, which was drone footage of the provenance of the water from the beer. And, you know, some of it was maybe over the top in terms of what we took to the user interface. But for us, we wanted to put everything in there to showcase the industry, that these are the elements in the technologies that are out there that you can give to consumers. And it was to showcase all of our suppliers that you can engage directly in many ways by utilizing relevant and current technologies that are out in the market today. Again, coming back on for us, it helped guarantee consumers the local support of Irish business. You know, letting them know that they're supporting the local employment and it's not all going into one monetized system into large PLCs. Here's a big part of it, and I'll not delve into too much because of time, but brand security and fraud is a huge aspect of this, and especially with higher utility items like whiskey, and something that we're developing a bit more on our side. And we have worked with the protocols and the ledgers to showcase, once you do it with beer, you can really do it with anything. But the higher utility items and ones that are probably in markets and have a lot more fraud in brand fraud, this becomes really important, where you can secure and the supplier and the producer can track and trace their product all around the world. If you're an international brand, you have the ability to set this up and to verify and secure exactly where your product's supposed to be going. Many producers have distribution agreements around the world that are over simply emails, phone calls, maybe a meeting once a year, and they have no idea where their product actually ends up. So this is a great way to track and trace it, as well as securing the supply chain. So some of the other bits, and again, the guys talked on this, that are evolving. The use of smart contracts, I feel, is a big one, where you can quickly utilize a smartwatch that everyone wears, or you can have your phone run a smart contract over the DLT, the digital ledger technology that has been built. And that's a quick way of even getting into regulatory stuff. You can quickly verify contracts and allow, it'd be great to see everyday users verifying that what is in the product is actually what it says on the label, or even labels may become outdated over time, and they have been around quite some time. So I do see a lot of that evolving in industry over the coming years. And then you have the whole engagement aspect of augmented reality, gamification, and that's really another step into engaging and marketing the consumer. These are some of the I suppose, the upstream of data and the downstream, where you can actually see the geolocation. You can take a lot of data analytics, and it's simple Google data analytics that most people would be familiar of, scraping and seeing, where your product's ending up, who the demographic are. Is this actually who you're targeting your product to? And so there is a lot of two-way communication. As I said, the first beer was set up in 2017. We then evolved into 4 different flavors over the last 3 years. After working with ArcNet, this is the new partnership that we have joined this year. They're called Micro Focus, and they use global product authentication services. And the reason that we moved to GPass was mainly because of the commerciality of what was in the market. And so when we used the first concept, and being first to market can have pain points, mainly cost pain points, and the commerciality of the pricing model. So for us, we had a pause button about a year ago, because you would have had to been selling massive volume to ensure that you were covering the costs of the secure ledgers that you were implementing and building in the back of the label. GPass allows this. It simply embeds a simple cost per label, and it doesn't have ongoing costs, because all of this data is held in servers, big servers that are all secured and verified, take a lot of power to, I suppose, a lot of storage, which can embed cost if it's not thought through correctly. These are some of the partnerships that we've some of the partners we've worked with over the last 2 years. Everyone from Marks and Spencer's, the Source Markets, and even at the moment, Flavorly holds a number of the cans that you can buy cases to your door and see the full supply chain of your can of beer and enjoy it while you're reading about it. Some of the other guys that have jumped in on this as well over the years is Elsa Bay, which is a Scotch whiskey. They have also embedded blockchain, is another Scotch distillery, and Blackwater Distillery. All these guys are doing for numerous reasons. Whiskey sits for everything from 10 to 20, 25 years. There's a lot happens over time. And when you want to bring that product to market, you want to bring it at a very high price point. For me, it always makes sense to give the most transparency as possible to the consumer. So again, it's ever evolving, and there are many others coming on board. So it's a very exciting time.
Thank you very much. That was a very comprehensive description of what you're doing and very useful. One of the questions that's coming in there is, do you build any information on recycling and disposal of the product packaging into the QR code? So again, I suppose that the virtue signaling there about sustainability and everything. So
yeah. And it's a great question, and something that we built in this year, the carbon footprint of the product, and how much is, if you scan through your downstream beer, you can see and that's new information that I suppose consumers are learning. What do these numbers mean? If you say the size of a carbon footprint of a can of beer, but we do implement sustainable factors. We try and give as much information, and you'll notice a lot more brands are doing this, even people that make running shoes or apparel. A lot of brands are trying to give this transparency. So yeah, we do put as much information. The carbon footprint, we actually do a logarithm around what the carbon footprint is of the brewery and the beer. So most of it is electricity usage and water usage, and that would be the biggest factors of distilling and brewing.
Very good. Well, one of the things that fascinated me in terms of your context and everything, whereby you described how some of the giants were putting out supposedly craft beers and everything, and the blockchain technologies would, I suppose, have been associated with some of those larger ones. So when you went to some of these craft and artisan producers, was it difficult to get across to them what blockchain type technologies could provide for them? Did they see it as a distraction to the vision that they had themselves?
Yeah, no, I was just saying a lot of these breweries have just simple brew sheets. They scribble down what they do on a daily basis. So they were quite open-minded to, again, most of these people are entrepreneurial in their own ways. So they were open-minded to looking at what this was about. But mainly it was a big advantage to them to use this type of technology, because they're big players that they're craft, they're passionate. You don't know where your can of Heineken's coming from, or your can of, whatever it is you might drink. So for these, they really wanted to show their story directly to the consumer. So it was using the word blockchain, that certainly scared them. So it was really trying to push the use of, secure authentication, engagement. And that's something that just consumer feedback would, if we were able to sell it to them, there's no reason that the consumer wouldn't want this as well.
Very good. Okay. Well, there's a couple of comments in there. They said, Grania saying, thank you, super presentation. This is right in the space that I work in, and would love to learn more. Traceability, transparency, trust. So I think it's certainly a good model, because it's one, I think, at the moment that can apply to any kind of craft or artisan discipline. But another question here then, would the consumer appreciate the difference between blockchain and a conventional web-based database accessed by barcode? So I think you're probably the only person who can answer that, given your own experience in it.
And that's it. QR codes, most QR codes, even like you look at the NHS apps and whatnot at the moment, they all go through the simple URL. So for the consumer, the websites that we built are actually all built on thousands and thousands of unique URLs that are all coded into the blockchain. So the consumer doesn't really need to know whether it's either, I would say, and it shouldn't. We shouldn't need to know either. But the supplier, that's where, as I said, the stakeholders, there's a lot goes on before beer makes it into your hand, and it goes on trucks. And there's the carbon footprint of trucks and how it goes across to different variations, and it's checked into different warehouses. The blockchain becomes a lot more value add, especially if you put a bad beer to market, and actors, which happen quite a bit. So they're more where the advantages would lie, I would say.
Okay. We'll just go with one last question, although there are quite a few there. Just to recap slightly on your own technology stack, and the question is, what blockchains are you using? You mentioned private chains and GPass. So if you could just give a very brief description of your technology stack.
Yeah, the stack at the moment is Micro Focus. You can read quite a bit about them on their website, Micro Focus, and they've got patent technology that only came out this year, and that is, the GPAS. This stands for Global Protection Authentication Service. So they have their development team based in Galway, and all the servers, I believe, are held in Dublin. You might know Microsoft has been there for a number of years, so they utilize of the servers in Dublin. That's who we work with at the moment, and they are fantastic in terms of their ability to work with startups. They're highly the cost is, if you're working with any product, it's a fraction into the cost you're able. So that's where their big advantage is, and their knowledge and understanding in the industry is phenomenal. So yeah, we utilize and work with them, and we will be working with them through 2021 as well. So exciting time that it's all homegrown.
I'll just thank our speakers again this morning, to Kevin Lally from Crypto Valley, to Shane McCarthy from Downstream IO. Thank you to Laurie for going through the strategy, and to our producer Donna this morning, and to ICT Skillnet for supporting the whole platform and providing the space to broadcast. So thank you from me as well, and all the engagement. We've fantastic questions and comments there this morning, so thank you very much to all our attendees. So I'll just hand back to Professor O'Connor now for the closing remarks. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. I think you've summed up a really exciting morning. I think Kevin Lally's presentation offers us a view of the future for Blockchain Ireland, and I think possibilities of cooperation and so on are very real. So thanks to Kevin for that. Shane, I was interested in your remark towards the end about the word blockchain. I think it is an issue, actually, but we're all working hard to make that much more user-friendly. And I think in a number of years, we'll be using blockchain like we use the internet, because I think it does have
I agree.
Transform the world. So
100%,
thanks for that. But I'd like to thank mostly you, the audience, for your participation today. We're very pleased that you've come back so active in your questioning and in contributing to what you would like in the future. I think the whole area of education, creating awareness like Block W do, is really important. There's a lot of work to be done, so thank you very much for that feedback. But one of the ways you can definitely work with us and provide leadership is through the working group. So we look forward to hearing from you, those who'd like to lead or participate, because that's what we want you to do, and that's why we're here, because we want you to be an integral part of the development of Blockchain Ireland cluster. So we look forward to hearing from you. Next month, the new year, it's hard to believe it, 2021, and we'll all be pleased to see the new year. We'll have, besides feedback from the working groups, we'll have a speaker from Blockchain Australia, looking then at other models in terms of their strategy. So I'd like to wish, on my own behalf, on behalf of the steering committee, wish you a very, very special Christmas. And I think it will be special to us all this year. And to wish you joy, happiness, good health, and continued success in the new year. And we hope for all the best. So thank you again for participating. Take care and have a very happy Christmas. Bye now.
Thanks for watching. You might be interested to know we are now taking expressions of interest for our Masters in Blockchain, which will commence September 2021. Just email your CV to info@ictskillnet.ie.